Welcome, this is David Parra. This is the first of a series of shows we are calling Social Security. Will it be there for me? We will be explaining the Social Security program, data on who and how much we depend on it, and we will address the important topic of how secure and solvent the program is for the long term. A very important component will be conversations with younger audiences. Today is the launch, and we have two special guests. First, we have Jasmine Wickfall. She is the Legislative Director for Social Security Works. We also have Veronica Segovia Bedon. She is Senior Advisor for AARP. I am extremely excited to have both of you on the launch of this show. Before we say anything else, welcome and thank you for joining our show.
Yes, thank you.
Thanks for having me. I'm really excited that we're doing this too.
How do you feel? We really want to emphasize Social Security and address and target, if you will, younger audiences. And I know you're younger than me. How do you feel about this? Do you think we have some chances of succeeding in getting younger audience to get interested in Social Security in terms of understanding the program, in terms of, I guess, getting involved with the debate, the conversation, and ultimately advocating for it? Anyway.
So I'll jump in just to say, as a millennial who works for AARP, I have a lot of hope. I think if I didn't, I wouldn't be in the role that I'm in. I have the privilege and honor of working in the diversity, equity, and inclusion group at AARP. And it is just so important that we come out and we talk about how, although Social Security is neutral with respect to race or ethnicity, individuals and groups are impacted differently over time. And it's really important that we as Hispanics, as Latinos, my parents are from Paraguay. I was born in the United States. I've worked since I was 16 years old. And it is important to me to understand my future, my economic future. And so I think the more understanding and education we have, the more optimistic people can feel in understanding the systems. And also the more optimistic they can feel and secure in how to plan. And we can get into some data later about, just how pessimistic folks are feeling right now in my age group about Social Security, but we can get into that later.
Yeah, we hear it a lot, people saying, will it be there for me? And they don't think so, but we'll try to convince them that it will. Jasmine, what is thoughts on whether we could be successful in getting younger audiences in this kind of dry topic? Could we have success in getting them interested?
I absolutely think so. At Social Security Works, we are huge advocates for making sure that young people are involved in this. Our staff is just a testament to that. Other than the co-founders of our organization, pretty much everybody else who works for Social Security Works is a millennial. I think we have maybe Gen Z in there as well. And so we really think that there's reason, like Veronica said, for young people to really be invested in talking about Social Security. But there's also a lot of interesting things to talk about. Like, it's not as dry as people try to make it sometimes. And like we've said, it's just so important for people to start thinking about retirement before they actually reach their retirement years.
And I totally agree with that. People say Medicare, Social Security is boring. It is not boring. I make it exciting. I get excited in talking about Social Security and Medicare. You're talking about, people think that Social Security is when you retire. No, it takes a lot of planning, right? Social Security is just one piece of the retirement preparation. So it is a good thing to understand how all this thing works, and then get ready. So because we want to do our shows kind of short, hopefully no more than 30 minutes, let's get started. And I would like to ask Jasmine to help us, first of all, presenting basic information about the program. I will be showing some slides. So Jasmine, take it away.
Yeah, so let's start with just basic, like, what is Social Security? I always like to start by saying that Social Security is insurance, just like any other sort of insurance that you have. So you protect your car by having car insurance. So in case something happens, you can make sure that you can replace your car, or you can actually make sure that you're protected while you're in your car. Same thing, we have health insurance so that we can protect our bodies, go to the doctor, and all of those things. In the same way, Social Security is insurance so that if there's any instance where you are unable to work any longer in the workforce, you have insurance against that. So there are three basic types of benefits, and the three that are most known and most well talked about are retirement insurance, disability insurance, and survivor's insurance. The one that I think young people are most familiar with is the retirement insurance that we just talked about. So if you reach age 65 or 67, depending on what year you were born, you are no longer wanting to work or no longer able to work, then you can apply for your Social Security benefits. Another really important part of Social Security is the disability insurance portion. Disability insurance actually covers workers who have not yet reached their retirement age. So if you are younger than the 65 or 67 we mentioned earlier, then if you become permanently disabled, you're unable to work, then that's what disability insurance is for. So think you could be 30 years old, experience a life-altering disability, and you can receive Social Security. And survivor's insurance, that last piece, also extremely important, is for any time a breadwinner is lost. So if, for example, a worker is tragically passes away, one of the examples we always talk about is after September 11th. After September 11th, there were a lot of first responders that lost their life. Their families, so think their spouses, their children, they were protected and received Social Security benefits based off of the work history of that breadwinner. So those are the three main parts, but there are also two other important things that the Social Security Administration does, two other benefits that are included kind of in the package of thinking in the space of Social Security. And so you'll see there that Medicare is listed as well as supplemental security income. So Medicare is very, very similar to Social Security. You pay into it, you earn it, and it provides health insurance when you reach your retirement years. And then supplemental security income is one that we care passionately about. I know at Social Security Works. It is for people who are living far below the poverty line. They are extremely low income and need a cash benefit, either because they are disabled, because they are senior, and they receive this additional cash benefit just so that they can make it by each month. So we're not talking about a lot of money. The maximum benefit is less than $800 a month. Again, very, very little money, but very important cash benefit for 8 million Americans across the country.
And Jasmine, it's interesting because this concept that I am using, will it be there for me, comes from a knowledge of a thought that goes in younger audiences' mind that it will not be there. So hopefully by going and reviewing these benefits, and I'm going to ask you also to speak on in just a bit on who are the beneficiaries. This is insurance. You are literally, you are going to be vested at a certain point while contributing, and it's just not only for when you get older. It's got so many benefits. So we really hope that folks who have this idea that it will not be there for them, or that it's for only for older people. No. It has a lot of benefits that could benefit depending on circumstances at any one point in our lives, depending again on circumstances. So we will try to convince the younger audiences that no, this is a very important topic and you're not too young to care for it. So would you mind briefly tell us about who the beneficiaries are?
Yeah, and just to tag team off of what you said, I love that you're not burying the lead, right? Social Security will be there for you, and I am positive that at the end of the presentation, you'll understand exactly what we mean by that. So just to start here with talking about who benefits from Social Security, you'll see very clearly that we're not just talking about people who are working and then retire, right? Social Security is a family program. We consider it to be cradle to grave coverage at Social Security Works. So that means that children are covered based off the work history of their parents. Workers are covered, their spouses are covered, even former spouses, and that's extremely important, especially for women oftentimes who maybe are married for over 10 years. They experience divorce later in life. They aren't able to maybe find work like they would have, or they're just unable to work at all, but they are able to receive Social Security based off the work history of their previous spouse. Even parents are able to, if they are dependent on their child, are able to receive benefits based off that work history. So there are just so many different instances when you could receive Social Security. It's not just about being over 65.
And I would like you to keep going, Jasmine. Help us understand, how is the program financed? Sometimes because we don't get the check, the physical check anymore. I remember when I was younger, I got a check and it says FICA on one of those lines. Now it's a direct deposit. We might not see it. Help us please understand, how are we contributing, paying our tax so that we can be vested and then have the right to this benefit?
Yeah, the mysterious FICA that's on everyone's pay stub. What is that? So FICA, you can really just think of it as your insurance premium, the same way, again, that you pay for other forms of insurance. Your contribution to Social Security is FICA. So each paycheck, you pay 6.2% of your income into Social Security. If you work for an employer, your employer also contributes 6.2% for the total of 12.4%. And that goes into Social Security, again, across your entire work history. If you're self-employed, then you actually pay the entire 12.4%. But either way, Social Security is self-funded. It is funded completely by us. We earn those benefits, and then that money goes only to pay for Social Security, the benefits, and the administration of the program.
Definitely. And so we have heard that we can, are vested. We have the right at 10 years of employment. There's a little bit more detail about the credits that we earn each year. Can you briefly explain those, the issue of credits?
Yeah, really quickly. So credits is just every single quarter of work you do. So a quarter is 3 months of work. You receive a credit towards Social Security. So in a year, in theory, you could actually get 4 credits of work. But for Social Security, it does not have to be consecutive. Another example that usually pertains to women is that you could have work history and then take time off to maybe raise your kids, come back to the workforce, and you can still, after a total of 10 years of work, qualify for retirement benefits. Now, disability actually works a little different. You don't have to work for 10 years necessarily to qualify for disability. It could be less. It depends on your age. But again, your work history is what makes sure that you're qualified for benefits.
Thank you. And it's interesting that the Social Security Administration stopped sending the statement that they were sending each year. Now it's changed. And we really encourage people to create an account on at socialsecurity.gov. Just briefly, if you can help us understand this concept.
Yeah, so Social Security actually by law is required to send those annual statements in the mail. Unfortunately, they have chosen to not fulfill that duty, and that's something we're fighting for them to start doing again. But in the meantime, until that is again happening, then you can visit ssa.gov. You can create a My Social Security account, and there you can see your estimated benefit in retirement. You can see your work history, which is really important, because if your work history is wrong on that statement, then you definitely need to contact Social Security Administration to correct it so that you receive the right amount of benefits when you are ready to draw your Social Security.
This matter of Social Security will only provide you about a third maybe a little bit more than the income you will need in retirement. So we encourage, especially younger audiences in this. Here's where planning, is so critical. Even the job that you select, you may pick a career that doesn't have benefits. So like a 401k. Just briefly, what are other sources of income that we could, if possible, plan to have in retirement?
Yeah, if you're lucky, like you said, because everyone doesn't have this, you could have access to a 401k plan, a private defined contribution plan. You could have your personal savings. You could have investments in the stock market, all those different things. But like you said, only about half of workers have access to those things. So it is important for us to fight for our Social Security system. Social Security is definitely a solid choice. It's never missed a payment. It's been there for such a long time. So those other ways are important. And if you have them, you should use them. But in addition to that, we should all be fighting for Social Security, which is a certain choice.
Thank you. Definitely. Now let's come to Veronica. Veronica, I have a radio show, and I happen to this particular radio show. It's most of its listeners are the Spanish prefer audiences, Latinos, Spanish prefer, and I get calls all the time, and I get very almost sorry that a lot of people will reach retirement with only their Social Security check, and in most instances, it's going to be very low. Can you kind of help us understand some data about this, who and how much people depend on Social Security, particularly, and again, we want to emphasize young audiences. This is important to you because then you get to prepare ahead of time in selecting those jobs. And like we said, maybe opening an IRA account, investments, etc., because Social Security is not necessarily going to cut it. Actually, it won't cut it just on its own. So we need more. Help us to share with us a little bit of the data, if you don't mind, Veronica.
Yeah, I thank you so much for the opportunity to do that. I think if you think about and we think about as younger Latinos, especially, if you're talking to, this is the part of your Arizona Hispanic Connection programming, and we're going to talk specifically to younger Latinos. I think it's important for us to understand and acknowledge that Hispanic households contributed more than $100 billion to Social Security, and according to the Federal Reserve, on average, about 44% of Hispanic families have access to an employer-sponsored retirement plan. And that's in comparison to 68% of white families who have access to retirement plans. So when you say that there are families who you speak to, primarily Hispanic Latinos who prefer to speak Spanish, who rely heavily on Social Security for their income, you are correct. I took a look at a tool that we have at AARP that's called Data Explorer. And AARP's Data Explorer is a tool that you can actually go in and use and actually take a look at how many people actually rely on Social Security for their well-being and their income. And when I do that data around Hispanic, there's a higher percentage of Hispanic Latinos compared to non-Hispanic whites who rely on Social Security benefits for 90% of their income.
Wow.
And that number is around 25% of Hispanics. And that's Hispanics 65 and older. And what does that matter to us? Well, I would say that as younger Latinos, it is very impactful because we live in multi-generational homes. We live and interact in our multi-generational communities. And so that means that maybe our tias, our abuelas, people in our family, our neighbors might be very reliant on Social Security. Another thing that I wanted to share with you around data is that on average, if we're looking at, I'm looking at data from December of 2019, the average monthly family benefits there in general, they go not only to retired folks, but they go to, as Jasmine mentioned, a widowed mother or father. They might go to a disabled worker or a wife and their children. Right? So it's impacting each generation of the Latino family. And very important for us to think about those grandparents who are raising grandchildren and who are having to extend that Social Security benefit to cover, not only their own livelihood, but the livelihood of those children and the future of our nation.
Definitely. It's interesting because in this country, we value highly independence, right? We really would like everybody to be independent in a good sense. Let's just put it in a good sense. So, I have my parents who came from Mexico, and if it wasn't that they have the children, us, they could not do it because they only have Social Security and just a bit more. My
Mhm.
father-in-law could not do it. So here, that's the deal. We don't want to reach that age and have to depend on our children. It's fine if the children want to help us, no problem with that, but it's not a must. We want it to be there to be independence financially, and the only way that this is going to happen is if we plan, if we think ahead. I've been telling my children that I would like to retire early, and I'm planning for it. And now that I kind of infuse this concept into my son, one of them, I have two sons, one daughter, he wants to retire at 50. He's saying, I am going to work to retire at 50. He's saying, it might be a crazy idea, but the good thing is that he's thinking about it, and that's the value of information and programs like this. We really want to motivate the younger audiences to understand the program better and to plan for it. Why not dream, right, of retiring early? Why not, right? Let's move now to the challenges ahead. And there is a lot of talk that Social Security is not going to be there, it's going to go bankrupt. So, in a brief way, Jasmine, could you tell us the status of the Social Security trust funds currently? Take it away.
Yes. So I think challenges sounds a little negative, so I'm going to call it an opportunity. These are
Okay, I
these are
might change it.
opportunities that we have, opportunities that I would say for our generation to make the changes we want to see in Social Security and make sure Congress does the things that they need to do to ensure our benefits are at 100% and beyond. So last year, the trustees report, which is a fancy report that explains all of what's going on with our social security system, reported that Social Security has a $2.9 trillion surplus. So Social Security has a lot of money in its reserve. In addition to that, it's 100% funded until 2035. So that means it will pay full benefits until 2035. Beyond that, no need to worry. Social Security, if Congress does nothing, is 91% funded for 25 years, 85% funded for 50 years, and 82% funded for 75 years. And so the actuaries have predicted that there is a shortfall. Again, that means that people wouldn't receive 100% of their benefits, but Congress can act. And so that's why this advocacy work is so important, because we have to tell Congress what we want them to do. Do we want to receive our full benefits? Do we want to receive expanded benefits in the future? And it's up for us to figure out what we value as a community to really push forward and make Social Security the program we want it to be in our generation.
Definitely. And let's kind of move into our conclusion here. So we are having this series of Facebook shows to ask the younger audience, particularly, but everyone actually in general, join our effort. And we're going to be running these shows till the end of November. The end of November, and at least for now, I would like to think of having shows every other week, and we will bring members of this younger, the 30s, the 40s, and the 50s, bring them onto the show and ask them, what they think, what they know, whether they think it's worth it to join efforts like this to get educated, to enter the debate and the discussion about these programs, and of course to advocate when the right time comes, when it is time to pressure Congress, right, to do something about it. Because though it's not in an imminent danger, we still would like the program to get funded properly for the longer run. So what am I saying? What I'm saying is that this is a special effort. It's going to be run in several states. AARP is running this. Arizona is one of them. And we would like to contribute to a better understanding of Social Security. We would like to protect those most in need, those most reliant on Social Security, and who would have trouble postponing retirement. There's a lot of people who don't need Social Security as their only income. I mean, they have other sources and they might not be worried about it, but as Veronica shared with us, at least 1/4 depend on 90% of that benefit. So there's that group that we would like to protect. And we would like to achieve long-term security and solvency. And for this reason, we are asking you to join our Facebook group. We have created here in Arizona, but obviously anybody can join. This is a universal, if you want, or a nationwide debate or conversation. Join our Facebook group. It's called Social Security, Will It Be There For Me? And you can find the address there, or you can just look it up on Facebook. And we would like to get a big group of folks that we can converse on a daily, weekly basis, share information. And again, when the right times, we would like to ask you to contact your representatives, your legislators. So let's end here. It's about 26 and a half minutes, not too bad. We always like shorter programs, but sometimes it is very difficult. So I would like to just ask each one of you to briefly say final comments, anything on your mind before we conclude. Go ahead, Jasmine, if you can take it away first.
Yeah, I just want to echo you and encourage everyone to really get involved in this and become advocates, because when any member of Congress says they want to cut Social Security, they're usually not talking about cutting it for retirees. They're talking about cutting it for us. Mm-hmm. And so it's important that if we don't want to see that happen, that you all get involved. And then I want to also invite you all as well to visit socialsecurityworks.org, because we also have a lot of resources that you all can look into, dive into, in addition to all the other things that AARP has to offer. And so please come and join us here as well and see all the things we have to offer.
Veronica?
Yes, thank you so much. First, I just want to applaud you, David, for putting this show together. I'm so happy that you're bringing it to your community and on Facebook so that, Jasmine and I can share it with our own networks where we are, right? And really spread the word. One thing that I definitely want to share, and I don't think I highlighted it earlier, is just the really significant role that millennials play in the Latino community. If we're going to talk to Latinos, we must include millennials in the conversation. I am someone who has been advocating for my Spanish preferred mother since I was 5 or 6 years old, making those doctor's appointments for her. I've always translated for her. And when it comes time for her to, collect Social Security, I'll be navigating that system as well for her, right? And so I think as navigators, millennials have a big investment in understanding how Social Security works, who the beneficiaries are, and then how to keep it strong so that it's there for us when we get to that age. And so I would say, what does this mean? We have a real need for education and increased understanding. And so I just want to applaud you again, David, and thank you, Jasmine, for joining the conversation, because we really can bring awareness and increased sort of value, perceived value for the program. And then the other thing that I wanted to just offer is that AARP does have a Social Security calculator. So if someone is in a position, if you are in a position right now, I'll just give the example. My mother-in-law has been wanting to retire for a couple of years now, ever since we brought grandchildren into her life, right? She wants to retire and just take care of our grandchildren. And that sounds great. It sounds like a wonderful thing to not have to pay for childcare or something like that. But who's going to end up paying for that shortfall in her income because she's claiming her Social Security earlier? We are, right?
Definitely.
So it's something that I bring up a lot within my own family, and she's still working, thank gosh. And I'm happy to report that she is still working while she can. But it's things to think about, and I think the way that we think about it and the way we prepare is by having these conversations. So thanks again, David, for inviting us, and I hope you'll have us back.
Definitely. Thank you both. We will conclude the program, and we are inviting all of you watching this show, join our Facebook group. It's called Social Security, Will It Be There For Me? Thanks again. See you next time. Bye-bye.